5 minutes early, and I was like,
Alrighty, folks. I think we do have quorum. Once everyone gets to their seat, we can get started. This- okay. Alrighty. So good morning. My name is Councilor Chris Moyes. I'm the chair of the Toronto and East York Community Council. We do have quorum. I'm now calling meeting 16 to order. Welcome to everyone in the room and online. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room Number 1. The meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we are meeting in different locations today, the Toronto and East York Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. As an African Canadian, I am committed to continually acting in solidarity with our African, Caribbean, and Black communities seeking freedom and reparative justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continues to impact our communities across Canada. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of the City of Toronto's ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African, Caribbean, and Black origin and descent. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto and East York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. The Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need to help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at tycc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand and unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, may I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on July 10th, 2024? Deputy Mayor Malik, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Before we begin the agenda rundown, may I have a motion to add new business item TE 16.48 to TE 16.63? Councilor Sachs, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So items 16.1 to 16.17 are timed, so we will begin the run through at item 16.18. 16.18, changes to Business Improvement Area Board of Management. Councillor Deputy Mayor Malik.
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 16.19, encroachment appeal 495 to 517 Wellington Street West, proposed ground sign. Deputy Mayor Malik.
I'd like to defer this to the next TYCC, please.
Okay, all those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. T 16.20, corridor safety review, Mortimer Avenue between Pape Avenue and Broadview Avenue. Councilor Fletcher.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to have a motion a bit later. I'll just hold that now, please.
T 16.21, maintenance of bike lanes around construction projects. Councilor Perks.
We have a speaker.
Yep. Oh, we do have a speaker. That's right.
Hold.
Yep. It actually says it right here on my list. TE 16.22, 31 and 33 Parliament Street, construction staging area. Deputy Malik.
I'd like to defer this item to the next meeting of TYCC, please.
meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.23, 48 to 58 Schollard Street and 1315 to 1325 Bay Street construction staging area. Time extension. Councillor Sachs.
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.24, 155 Balmoral Avenue construction staging area. Deputy Malik.
It's Matlow.
Oh, Matlow, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just going to move to receive it,
Okay, all those in favor?
just to receive it.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm not wearing my glasses. T 16.25. I'm gonna have to use yours, Councillor Fletcher. One moment. T 16.25, 227 Gerard Street East, construction staging area. I'm gonna move an amendment. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. As amended? As amended, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. T 16.26, construction staging area, Control and Transit Commission, Easier Access Program, Greenwood Station, Stage 5. Councilor Fletcher.
In hopes of actually getting this completed, I will move to approve.
You want to move to approve?
Yes,
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
it's a long, long, long project by the TTC.
T 16.25, accessible parking spaces, September 2024, and that's delegated. You'll move it? Councilor Fletcher, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.29, exclusion of development located at 350 Bloor Street East from permit parking program. Councilor Sachs? Okay, it's a motion. And there's someone who's deputy. 2.9, there are no deputy to this item.
It's 2.8 that you have to have it on, so if you have your motion, so you're in 2.9.
2.9, yes.
Sorry about that. I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.30, exclusion of development located at 83 to 95A Bloor Street West from the permit parking programs. Councilor Sachs?
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.31, exclusion of development located at 931 Young Street from the permit parking program. Councilor Sachs?
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.32, realignment of permit parking area 5D to exclude development located at 171 to 175 Lawther Avenue. Councilor Sachs?
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.33.
Mr. Chair, on a point of order,
Go ahead.
these exclusion motions, they drive me bananas. We passed a citywide policy that this should be automatic, and yet we're having to move them item by item. It is the citywide.
They say they're going to fix it now.
When are we going to, are we ever going to see a fix? Can the clerk comment or someone from planning? Like,
They've said they're going
Can
to.
planning comment on that? Can anyone comment on this item as to Councillor Perks's point of order?
Chair, my understanding is that the process to exclude developments from the permit parking program is done through Transportation Services Development Planning and Review Unit that will, when they receive circulation notice of a development, they will send a memo to the Planning Division for them to incorporate a recommendation in their report to exclude. That's my understanding.
I'll
So-
pursue this offline. I mean, we do have citywide
I'm going
policy
online.
here, and I'll certainly include Councillor Fletcher in that conversation. We have passed an amendment to the municipal code saying that new developments don't get permit parking, and it's ridiculous that we have to do them site by site.
Okay. Okay.
I have my hand up.
Go ahead, Councilor Fletcher. Also, to people in the room are having difficulty hearing the members, so please speak into the mic and make sure your microphone's on. I too will try to amplify my voice.
Thank you. As the counselor who did the very first exclusion on Jones Avenue to exclude permit parking for a brand-new condo development, I also think it should be done, but I want to make sure I'm advised, because what I'm finding is that things are happening and I'm not getting advised that it's happening. So I'd like to understand what the process is going to be, and Councillor Perks, if you're taking that offline, I'd like to see what the protocol is going to be and how and when the office will be advised, because if it's not done, then it is very difficult to now take it out. And it's not the number one issue for our staff, but it becomes the number one issue in the neighborhood when you're adding 20 floors and you're in a permit parking zone. So that's my proviso here, and I'm happy to have it here because I know that it's happening.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Fletcher. To continue, TE 16.33, realignment of permit parking area 5E to exclude the development located at 906 Yonge Street and 25 McMurtry Street. Councilor Sachs.
I move the staff recommendations, and I have been promised by zoning staff that I won't have to keep doing this one by one, that they have now noticed council's direction.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.34, realignment of permit parking area 6D to exclude the development located at 191 to 199 College Street and 74 to 76 Henry Street. Councilor Sachs?
I move the staff recommendation.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 16.35, realignment of permit parking area 8B to exclude the developments located at 1095 and 1111 Danforth Avenue and 1117 Danforth Avenue. Councilor Fletcher.
Approve the exclusion of development from permit parking.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 16.36, realignment of permit parking area 8D to exclude the developments located at 880 to 882 and 888 Eastern Avenue and 74 to 80 Knox Avenue, 929 Queen Street East, 1134 Queen Street East, and 1233 to 1243 Queen Street East, and 77 Leslie Street. Councilor Fletcher.
I will move the staff recommendation to exclude these 5 developments from permit parking, and they're all stacked together for Queen Street. So thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.37, realignment of permit parking area 9A to exclude the developments located at 6-9-25 and 10 to 30 Dawes Road. Councilor Bradford.
Thanks very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendations.
Opposed? Carried. T 16.38, introduction of overnight on-street permit parking, permit area 9A, Newman Avenue. Councilor Bradford.
Thanks very much. I'd like to move the staff recommendations, please.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.39, extension of permit parking hours, Mitchell Street. I'm going to move a motion to defer this until the October 24th TYCC meeting. All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? Carried. T 16.40, traffic control signals, Queen Street West and Fuller Avenue. Councilor Perks.
Move approval?
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.41, traffic control signals, Lakeshore Boulevard East and Booth Avenue. Councilor Fletcher.
Yes, I'm just going to hold this. I'm so excited that somebody now has agreed to a signal after I've asked for years and been told no. So I'd like to know how that happens. So I'll hold that for a minute.
Okay, 16.42, 55 Danforth Avenue, turn prohibition. Councilor Fletcher,
I'll just hold it.
you holding it?
Yep. I need my glasses. Going to get them.
T 16.44, appointment to the Board of Management of the Waterfront Neighborhood Center. Deputy Mayor Malik.
I move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So we're just gonna let 43 for speakers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm holding item 43 for speakers. T 16.45, pedestrian crossover and parking amendments, Leonard Avenue, Councillor Sachs.
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 16.46, parking amendments, St. Mary's Street, Councillor Sachs.
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.47, speed humps installation, Chikora Avenue between Bedford Road and Avenue Road, Councillor Sachs.
I move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.48, parking amendments on Drury Street between Annette Street and Johns Road, Councillor Perks. Number 48.
It's not me.
There's Ward 4.
I'm very sorry. I got my numbers mixed up. I'll move the recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. TE 16.49, reopening and technical amendments, item TE 15.34, accessible parking spaces, July 2024. Councilor Perks?
Yes.
You want to move that item?
Yes, I'm going to move it. This is just correcting an error in the original.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yeah, we need to
Opposed?
do the
Okay.
reopening
Oh, we need to reopen? Okay, sorry.
Reopen,
Yeah,
and then on the amendment.
okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.50, commercial loading zone removal, St. Helens Avenue, Councilor Bravo.
To move the recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.51, installation of speed humps on Concord Avenue between Hallam Street and DuPont Street, Councilor Bravo.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.52, installation of speed humps on Day Avenue between Goodwood Avenue and Rogers Road, Councilor Bravo.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.53, installation of speed humps on Kingsley Avenue between Symington Avenue and Longton Avenue, Councilor Bravo.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.54, installation of speed humps on Perth Avenue between Kingsley Avenue and Davenport Road, Councilor Bravo.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.55, parking amendments, Bartlett Avenue, Councilor Bravo.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.56, Liberty Village Traffic Action Plan Update, Deputy Mayor Malik.
I'd like to hold this item, please.
T 16.57, loading zone, Huron Street Junior Public School, Councilor Sachs.
Moving the recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.58, U-turn prohibition by Bayview Avenue and Nesbitt Drive, Councilor Sachs.
Yes, to improve safety of pedestrians and drivers, I'm moving the recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.59, student safety on Robert Street from College Street to Russell Street, Councilor Sachs.
Move the recommendations.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Chair, with apologies to yourself and to my colleagues on the committee, I made a mistake not holding 16.43. I just have a couple of questions of staff.
You want to reopen?
Yes, please.
It's held because there's
Oh,
speakers
okay,
here.
sorry, there's
It's okay,
deputations.
there's speakers on the
Thanks.
item. 16. Okay, T 16.60, commercial loading zone, 260 Adelaide Street East. I'm going to move my recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.61, removal of on-street accessible loading zone and implementation of a commercial loading zone on Wellington Street West, west of Yonge Street. I'm going to move my recommendations, my letter. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.62, Taylor's Wharf Lane speed hump. I'm going to move the recommendations in my letter. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. T 16.63, McLean Avenue parking amendments, Councilor Bradford.
I'm sorry, tell me that again, please.
Counselor Bradford,
Oh, Bradford, I heard Fletcher.
To my letter, please.
all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, then that's a rundown.
I'm going to have a couple of new pieces of business, and I'll give that into the clerk before the end of morning. Thank you, just working on it with staff.
You said in the morning? Sure.
Pardon?
You said in the morning?
It is morning.
It is still morning, yes, indeed.
Okay.
Okay. So we have additional new business items to introduce. So Councilor Perks.
I don't have the item number, but I'd like to introduce the item passenger loading zone on the south side of Bloor Street West between Colburn Lodge and Pacific Avenue.
Okay, I think it's displayed. So 1 sec. Just waiting for staff to display it.
A lot of anticipation going on, I can tell.
Yeah, we're good? Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried?
Members, what this does is create some accessible parking or accessible drop-off spaces at High Park.
Okay. We're just adding it to the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Sachs, you have one item here. Speed hump installation, Castle Frank Road between Dale Avenue and Hawthorne Avenue.
Yes, I'd like to add that to the agenda, please.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Bravo. Oh, it wasn't displayed, sorry. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Bravo, parking amendments with Dover Court Road. You want to add that item? It's okay. We're going to add parking amendments to Dover Court Road. Okay? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Matlow, you have a few items here. Traffic control personnel at the intersection of Young Street and Heath Street.
I move my letter.
Okay, we're just adding it to the item, but
Oh,
I need to get it displayed first. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 items here, right? Okay, we're gonna add each one separately. So the first item, all in favor of adding? The second item is proposed traffic bylaw changes in the Forest Hill Village. We're gonna display that one. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Forest Hill Public School turn restrictions. That's from Councilor Matlow. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Westover Hill Road turn restrictions. Also from Councilor Matlow. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Deputy Mayor Malik, have a few items here. First one is parking amendments, Brand Street. Waiting for display. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Parking amendments, Mercer Street.
I'd like to move the recommendations in my letter.
We're just adding it.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. All those in favor?
Please add it.
Okay.
I'd like to-
Opposed, carried, yes. The next item is parking amendments, Western Battery Road. That's the last item to add. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, and those are all the items that have been added. For now. For now. Okay, so we're gonna go back up to timed item. So it's after 10, so we're. I'm just talking to myself at this point. Okay, T 16.1, the first timed item, 675 King Street West zoning bylaw amendment decision report. We do have speakers on this item. Dijena Pashkik, are you here? No? Melanie Heath, are you here? Virtual? Okay.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, Melanie. You have 5 minutes to present.
So I don't have a long presentation. I just wanted to say that I am a professor in the Department of Sociology at McMaster University. I bought my condo here at 700 King Street West in 2017. And so I'm very concerned about this permit for a 21-story mixed-use building, which has a height of approximately 72 meters, that this is going to impact the value of 700 King Street West, which is a historic building. It has a historical past. A lot of money has been spent to develop the rooftop that has, a wonderful view. And so this is really going to have an impact overall on the price, the reason that I bought my condo and my own view, as well as an impact on all of the people who are living in this condo unit. So we were alerted to this 21-story mixed-use building, and it really is, it's not reasonable for a 21-story building right here. It just doesn't seem like a reasonable, it's too high.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today. Arthur Grabowski, the Planning Partnerships, are you here? Okay. You have 5 minutes, go ahead.
Members of Toronto East Community Council, my name is Arthur Grabowski. The Planning Partnership are the planning consultants representing Colonial Truehand at this very important and strategic site within downtown Toronto. Just a bit about our client. Colonial Truehand is actually a local and family-owned business. They've been long-term investors in the King Parliament and King Spadina area. For over 40 years, they've carefully assembled their lands over time, and we're delighted to bring this proposal here before you today. And this is a true mixed-use development involving retail at grade, office, and purpose-built rental above. We're looking to implement and work with staff on the sustainable design elements, which will advance through the site plan approval process. In response to comments received by Melly, I just want to clarify that this development does not include the Wheat Sheaf development or the Wheat Sheaf building. And I just wanted to offer, actually thank staff for their positive work on this, specifically Eileen Kang, our planner on this file. So we're here to answer any questions as needed, and I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for coming in today. Deputy Mayor Malik, this is your item.
Thank you very much. I don't have a question for the deputant, but I do have one for staff, just to share a little bit more about what the engagement was on this application.
So, through the chair, a virtual community consultation meeting was hosted by city staff on May 31st, 2023. Approximately 14 people participated, and staff gave a presentation on the planning framework, development review process, and the site and surrounding area. And the applicant presented details of their proposal, and following the presentations, there was a moderated Q&A session. Comments and questions included the timing, the construction for the Ontario line, height, as the deputant has previously said, increase the amount of vehicles and traffic to the area, and the inclusion of the affordable, possible inclusion of affordable units. For this, there's further correspondence by community consultation with members of the public, and the information that we got from the community consultation was incorporated into the staff report and the analysis of the application.
Okay, and can you just confirm that this is purpose-built rental?
Sorry, through the chair, we have confirmed with the applicant that it is at this time going to be 100% purpose-built rental.
I'd like to approve the staff recommendations, please.
Okay, all those in favor of approval? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 16.2, 374 to 390 DuPont Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, decision report. We have speakers on this item. Ornella Riccici. Are you here? Okay. You have 5 minutes to depute before the council. Good morning.
Thank you. With me is Nick Papapetru, and he is also on your list, so we thought we'd come both forward at this time to save some time. So thanks again for letting us address Community Council this morning. We represent the owners of the property, being resident. We are before Community Council again, this time to support the staff recommendations contained in the staff report before you. We were here previously in June of 2023, where we received a positive result from Community Council. At that time, there were 2 conditions associated with that support, involving additional rail study work, as well as some satisfying some ECS comments. Through the process of working with staff and the rail consultants and peer reviewers, it resulted in some changes to the building, mainly the shrinking of the underground parking level that has resulted in a reduction of approximately 15 parking spaces. There was also the extension of the level 2 roof, so now we've extended and increased the green roof. We can provide further details, obviously, if anyone has any questions. Prior to coming here today, we did reach out again to the ARA and to the neighbors. They have been integral during the entire consultation process through the last several years, resulting in the built form that we see it before us today. As I said, we did inform them similarly of these changes. So at this point in time, as I started off saying, we concur with the staff report. We want to thank staff and all those involved in getting us here today. It's been a very consultative process, and we can answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sachs?
I don't have any questions. I'm ready to move the staff recommendations.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
T 16.3, 41 to 45 Spadina Road, zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition application. We do have speakers on this item. Charlotte Mickey, Spadina Gardens Tenants Association, are you here? Okay, you have a seat, you have 5 minutes.
York Community Council, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm Charlotte Mickey. I'm the head of the Spadina Gardens Tenants Association. I've lived at Spadina Gardens for almost 32 years. The SGTA is not opposing the motion today. Nevertheless, we are very concerned about aspects of the application. We are hoping some measures can be taken to make this situation better, even at this late hour. Apparently, it's typical for applications to pass zoning with issues deferred to site planning, permitting, etc. But in this case, that order of events seems to be counterintuitive, to defy common sense. The impression we have is that the dream, which is terrific, we agree, that the tenants can stay in place, the heritage building will emerge intact. The very elements that appealed to everyone, I think, are exactly the elements that are most in question. So number one, first you are considering an unprecedented structure, literally. The tenant, the SGTA, and the ARA have repeatedly asked the applicant for precedents of similar buildings, resting on a similar single support, floating above a heritage building. So far, none have surfaced. We have an ask. We request an independent engineering report to confirm that the project can be executed safely on this site. Number two, separate from the soundness of the new building, we do not know if the old, very precious, rare heritage building that we live in can sustain the pressure of the excavation. And if it can't, that would mean the tenants would be in danger. So we have an ask. We request a vibration impact study and construction impact study as recommended by the Preservation Board to establish safe baselines and to ensure the heritage building will be secure. This is covered as a recommendation by the PB in the heritage easement motion that's coming up next. What we wish to raise here, assuming it passes, is a recommendation sufficient to secure this. Thirdly, Prowinco has indicated that they would prefer to defer a lot of repair work on the old building until after the construction of the new building. If the old building is not made secure in advance, again, we believe this could pose a danger to both the building and the tenants. And our ask, we request that conservation measures be required as appropriate in advance of excavation and construction. Again, this will be covered as a recommendation by the Preservation Board in the heritage easement motion. What we wish to raise here, assuming it passes, is a recommendation sufficient to ensure the work will be done. Fourthly, should there be a catastrophic event, or should the building simply be unbearable, unhealthy to live in during construction, there is no plan B for the tenants. Our ask, we request a working group to negotiate a plan B with support from city staff. The applicant has suggested recourse to the LTV in the case of severe loss of enjoyment, but this is unwieldy and onerous for many tenants. The remedies in the case of a catastrophe provided by the city are woefully inadequate and would be devastating. We're aware of tenants insurance and the rent bank, but I'm not clear on the parameters, nor am I clear on, it's all a bit murky, and I think a working group could be very helpful. I realize this is a challenging ask because you've told us you don't have a mechanism or protocol for this, but can we be imaginative here? Can a working group or mediation process be stipulated as a condition of the zoning? At the moment, there are no, number 5, at the moment, there are no accessible parking spots for disabled tenants, medical emergencies, et cetera. The proximity of the subway stations is not a solution. People need wheel-trans because they can't take the subway. Our ask, can you secure spots? The ARA has suggested 4. Is this feasible? We understand there has been progress on this front, even though we know this isn't a legislative requirement. Can we confirm what can be done today? Number 6, the tenants remain extremely concerned by the loss of light and the potential loss of ventilation posed by the placement of the 2 columns, one supporting, the other one providing the exit staircase. Our ask, we request an engineering study, not a presentation, which is what we have been given, to confirm adequate access to natural light and ventilation in all units post-construction. We would like genuine consideration given to changing the placement of the columns as recommended by the Preservation Board. We also request more information on the mitigation through reflective cladding that was offered by the applicant in the Heritage Impact Statement. The Annex Residents Association mentioned in their letter that the tenants feel they are pawns in an experiment. It's not my wording, but it's true, and it's uncomfortable. We don't even think it's acceptable. Can we try to solve some of this today together? In closing, I thank you for all your time, and I thank everyone who worked on this and engaged in consultation. The applicant, Councillor Sachs, city staff, especially Chris Pereira, who has been so kind and communicative, and who has secured tenant consultation during the site planning process. I also thank my neighbors, the members of the SGTA.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Councillor Sachs, go ahead.
Thank you, Charlotte. I know you've worked very, very hard on this for many months, and I appreciate your efforts. I do want to just clarify, your tenant association is not asking me to vote no on this application.
We are not asking you to vote no.
Right. And you've had many opportunities. I know you're not very happy with some of the answers, but you have had opportunities to meet with me, with staff, with the applicant, and to ask a long list of questions.
We had one opportunity to meet with the applicant, yes.
Right. And you've also discussed this matter on many occasions with Chris Pereira and with me, and you've given us a long list of questions.
I did give you a long list of questions, and I thank both you and Chris, yes.
Okay. You're aware that there are statutory limits on what we can do at this stage?
I'm aware, but I think there's always possibilities. If people have goodwill, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for all of your time. I know you've really been devoted to this.
Thank you.
Next up is Andrew Ferenancic. Are you here? Good morning, Andrew. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. My name is Andrew Ferenancic. I'm the planner representing the owners of the site. We do have a brief presentation. I don't plan to run through it in detail unless there are any specific questions. We're pleased to be here in support of the staff recommendations. We worked with city planning staff through this application with the councillor's office. We've had numerous pre-application meeting consultations with city staff. And at the end of the day, I believe that there is some consensus from the community that this is a form of development that is acceptable. It's actually a very innovative development that admittedly has little precedent, but it is something that works to preserve the unique heritage aspects of this building and also provide for a substantial amount of new housing on this site that is so well served by 2 subway stations in the downtown. So for all those reasons, we're here in support of the staff recommendations and the councillor's motions, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Councillor Sachs.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Ed. The first question is, as we've heard again from Charlotte just now, the tenants have asked, I've asked, staff have asked many times, show us an example of a building like this being built over a heritage building, and you haven't provided any examples. So this is truly unprecedented, correct?
No, I wouldn't call it truly unprecedented. Our architect did provide some examples. There's no exact apples to apples comparison between any one project or any one building and another project. So we can't give you one that looks exactly like this. That is true.
Right. Okay. So so there are a lot of questions that will still have to be answered. Getting zoning approval doesn't guarantee that you can build this building. You know that.
That's correct.
And you can't take this zoning approval and then try to build something completely different where you put pillars through the building or knock the old building down. You understand that this restricts you to what you've asked for.
That's correct. Our client understands that.
Okay. And your client also understands that this building, as you've proposed it, is not ever going to be eligible for public garbage pickup.
Understood, yes.
And that allows you not to have a type G loading space, which preserves a bit of the outdoor space for the tenants.
That's correct. In fact, there's a Moloch system that's being proposed, which would actually, we hope, provide for a very good garbage storage solution. Keep it clean.
Right, but that'll be done privately. Now, you know that I have a motion to amend the staff report. You don't have any objections to my motion?
No objections.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I did have one more question. So you've got a lot more processes to go through. You've got site plan, you've got building, you've got many opportunities when you're going to be working with staff to try to answer the many very excellent questions that Charlotte and her colleagues have put to you. Are you agreeing to keep the tenants informed and to consult them through this process, so you're not just keeping them guessing?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Sachs? And sorry, any further speakers on this item? Seeing none. Councilor Sachs? I have questions of staff. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So, hang on, I got too many questions going on here. All right. First of all, for planning staff, so you've spent a great deal of time reviewing and discussing with the annex residents, well, with the tenants, the questions raised in their letter and that Charlotte has just deputed to today. Considering all of those concerns, do you still recommend that we approve this proposal today?
Through the chair, yes, we still recommend approval.
All right. And do we have a, can you pause my time, please?
Excuse me.
The decision to be made against development that's going to push out folks in this space.
Excuse me, sir. Hello?
We need to make sure that we step up and speak up
Okay, so we have quorum. And we're going to resume the meeting. I'm gonna please ask our visitors to please follow the rules of this meeting. Otherwise, we'll have to recess again and we'll have to clear the room and people can come in one by one to depute. That's the plan that we're gonna put in place if we have disruptions again. I'm also aware that Councillor Bradford and Councillor Matlow has to leave around 12:30. Deputy Mayor Malik has to leave by 3:30. So, not me, but few councillors do have to leave in a couple hours. And we still have a lot to get through, so we may, I hope we don't have quorum issues. If 3 councillors leave, then the rest of us are, we're stuck to our seats. So
Need to get rid of 2 items for you early?
let me just gather my thoughts and try to see where I'm at with all of these outstanding items. So, so that we were in item number 16.4, right? Which item were we on? 16.3. 16.3.
Questions of staff.
And Councillor Sachs, you had questions of Sachs? Go ahead. You have staff, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, do we have to decide today?
Yes, Councillor.
Okay. Do we have to decide without answers to all the questions that will be answered through the site plan and building permit process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, those questions will be dealt with at the appropriate moments during the planning process, but yes.
Right. Do we have the legal right to delay the zoning until all those questions have been answered?
No, we do not.
What will keep the building from, what will keep the applicant from changing the building? Once we give the zoning approval, on all these promises that the tenants can stay in place, the heritage building will stay in place, what will keep them from then going to committee of adjustment or otherwise changing the building to take those wins away?
The applicant's committed to building in accordance with the bylaw, but there is no restriction on coming back later through a committee of adjustment.
They can reapply.
It would be a new application.
Right, but they can't just take this application and then knock down the building anyway.
Correct.
Do we have authority to guarantee the tenants the kinds of packages we would give them under Section 111 of the City of Toronto Act if there was a dem eviction? Do we have the legal power to guarantee them rent replacement, a right to return moving costs, and that sort of thing?
Because there are no rental units being lost through this application, we do not have the same authority.
So we don't have that authority?
Correct.
And to be clear, no one is being, contrary to the deputant before, the speaker, no one is being evicted as a result of this application, right?
There are no evictions proposed as a result of this application.
Okay. The ventilation study that was provided to the tenants at my request, is it credible and is it something we can rely on?
So that's above and beyond what we were able to request through the Planning Act. It's a study the applicants provided.
It was an
It's
extra.
really I would have to ask their consultant.
All right. Do we at the city have any reason to believe that that study is not credible?
No.
Could we refuse to approve the building on the ground? Well, we know that the new building is going to reduce direct sunlight to the building below. Do we have the right to refuse zoning approval for that reason?
No, we do not.
Don't people have the right to the sunlight on their windows?
The Planning Act protects for sunlight on public space, so public realm and parks.
Okay, and it doesn't protect sunlight on existing tenants?
Correct.
Is there anything more that we can do for the tenants at this stage that isn't already in your report or in the motion that you helped me prepare?
At this stage, no.
Have you gone through each of the questions and concerns raised by the tenants and made sure that we've addressed it to the limit of our ability?
Yes, we've had multiple meetings with multiple staff from different departments to try to address as many of the questions as possible.
If this matter went to the Ontario Land Tribunal, would we necessarily get as good a building as a result?
Through the chair, there's no way of knowing which development would result in should it go to the OLT.
Right, and we would have no control.
It would be outside of our jurisdiction, but we put our opinion forward.
All right. Given all of the concerns that you've heard repeatedly from the applicants as well as from the Annex Resident Association, could you explain, please, why are you recommending that we approve this building? Or, sorry, why are you recommending we approve the zoning?
Sure. The application meets the intent of the official plan. All city divisions that have reviewed it have provided their feedback. All are in alignment that it's a good application. We have a corresponding heritage report that's also recommending approval. We have the rental housing application where housing is also recommending approval. So all departments are aligned that this is a good application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Seeing none. Speakers on this item? You want to speak to this item?
I have a motion.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, so my motion, as mentioned in my conversation with the deputants and with staff, we have been working very hard to address the tenants' concerns and the resident association concerns to the absolute limit of our legal ability at this stage in the process. This is, in many ways, good news. In this room, we've heard the anguish of people who are evicted as a result of a development application. And we've heard how disruptive and destructive it is to people's lives to lose their community, to lose their location, to be evicted separately, and at best have to move twice to get back into the building many years later. So the fact that there's no evictions in this case is a big win compared to the other applications that we have to deal with. Secondly, this is an extraordinarily important heritage building. It's been recognized. I mean, there's a movie about it. Charlotte, who deputed, is one of the people, the stars of the movie, because this is a real gem in the city of Toronto and was a real innovation to create a space where professional women could live by themselves in the city of Toronto. And to, again, what we have over and over and over again at this table is applications to demolish or at most preserve parts of a heritage building. Usually we have just the frontage and we get a pretty front and a completely different building behind. So this is a remarkable application in that it proposes to evict no one and to preserve virtually all of an extremely valuable heritage building. And those are great things. It does mean if we're not evicting the tenants, well, not we, if the applicant isn't going to evict the tenants, that means that they are going to live there during construction. And anyone who's lived through a construction project can tell you there is no pleasure in living through a construction project. Not at your own house, not at a next door neighbor's house. And can you imagine having a 10-story condo building being built just over your head? There's nothing that sounds fun about that. So there are real significant losses for the tenants and for the neighbors. It's not going to be, in many ways, as lovely a place as it is now when there's a 10-story condo on stilts on top, assuming that this thing can be built, which none of us know. So I do want to recognize the enormous amount of work that's been done by Charlotte and her colleagues at the Residents Association to bring forward all the questions, to think ahead about all the different things that can go on during the construction and what might make this livable. And we hope that it will be, but we can't guarantee that it will be, because living in a construction site is noisy, it's disruptive, it's dusty, they're losing parking, there's a number of real losses for the people in the community. At the same time, we have legal limits. We can't, I mean, again, I've heard from the Annex Resident Association and from the tenants, why are we approving the zoning before we know for sure that this thing can be built? Why are we approving it now before we know for sure the answers from the site plan process? And the answer is that we can't do it. We just don't have the legal authority to make sure that all those Ts are crossed and Is are dotted now. The city will do that before we allow this building to be built, but we do not have the legal right to do it now. And it's absolutely understandable why people want those answers now, because this is a point where council's making a decision and we don't make a similar decision at the construction management stage or at the site plan stage, because those are decisions that by the province have been delegated to staff that councilors don't control. It's totally reasonable to raise the questions now. We've done everything that we can to answer those questions now to the best of our ability. We've set up a process for ongoing consultation, and I have every confidence that Charlotte and her colleagues will keep asking the right questions and that staff will do the best of their ability to get the answers to the questions as we go through the process. So that's, I think, as much as we can do at this point. I do really appreciate all of the time that's been put in by staff and by the residents. And I appreciate, even this morning, we've had input from the residents on the wording of the motion. We've made it as good as we can make it.
Councillor Stacks, your time.
And I'm asking for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed, carried. As amended, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. It's a reminder that we are on a time crunch, so please be quick. Thank you. And I'm going to take my own advice. Sorry? 16.4. 517 to 523 Richmond Street East and 97 to 115 Berkeley Street zoning bylaw amendment application. We do have speakers in this item. Michael Mills, are you here? Okay, Mr. Mills.
Hello.
Okay, 5 minutes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be quick with the recent interruptions, but I'm speaking for a couple of the owners on Parliament Street, and we have a number of issues. First of all is the blocking of the light on from where the building is proposed to our houses on Parliament Street. Sorry, I was just running to get to the computer. One of the others is the poor and dangerous location of the laneway, as well as not maximizing the density by leaving our buildings there. I'd submitted some pictures of the way it looks now, and that's the way it will always look, because no builder will come by and take our buildings as is. Sorry. First, the laneway is a horrible spot. It's right across from the laneway that's on the proposed other building, which is right around the corner from Parliament Street. And people come down off of Richmond, off the DVP on Richmond, and that's a very dangerous intersection. They've already put up the red light cameras, and so to put a laneway to a building right beside it is just, it's a terrible idea. People are going to be turning that corner from Parliament onto Richmond, and it's just going to be an accident hotspot. It's just a terrible place for it. As well, the laneway is supposed to allow for Ubers, taxis, delivery vehicles, maintenance vehicles, garbage vehicles, and it's just too small. Again, horrible, horrible location. It should not be there. One of my other concerns is on the age of the buildings on Parliament Street. They were all built in the 1880s, and they're fragile, to put it simply. With all the digging, the pounding for the pillars, to go into the ground for the footings, the rumble of dump trucks and backhoes, what's going to happen to our buildings? There will be damage. And who's going to pay for that? It shouldn't go through our insurance, because that will affect our rates. We've had numerous meetings beforehand on this, the last one being February of this year, and the city had proposed something to the builders. And, you know, taking out the laneway, taking out all of our buildings, and I don't know what's come from this, if anything. It's a great location. It's right by the Ontario line, DVP, subway, and to leave our buildings there, to leave the pizza place, the empty lot, one style of townhouse, then another style of townhouse, it looks hideous. And there's so much more that could be done to maximize housing in that area. And again, such a key location right by all the transit. So I'm very much opposed to it, as are a number of the other owners on Parliament Street. And I'll just drop my remarks there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your deputation. Any questions for deputant? Seeing none. Next deputant is Bruce Hall, the Planning Partnership. Are you here? You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bruce Hall. I'm here on behalf of Colonial Truhand. And just for your reference, the first application that you heard, which Mr. Grabowski presented at 675 King, is the same owners, also proposing purpose-built rental at this location. They are very early investors in the downtown east and have patiently held these properties for decades, maintaining them for employment uses. And over this time, they've faced a lot of adverse conditions associated with the broader industry and job losses, economic cycles, and many complex community challenges, notwithstanding that they have continued to operate these buildings, but they're looking forward as the area has begun to very much evolve dramatically, and they hold the view that it holds a lot of promise for meaningful urban renewal and growth, and making further investments given the infrastructure investments in transit and active transportation in the area. And it's only through this early investment and patience, holding these properties over this long period of time, that they can make such a large purpose-built rental housing project work. So there are going to be approximately 660 purpose-built rental units created within this development. Maintenance of the existing heritage properties on the site on Berkeley, and creation of open space, and retention of commercial uses for employment will be reconfigured but exist on site. And these heritage properties are designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, and they will be integrated into the new development. And that allows the fine-grained character and pedestrian streetscape along Berkeley to be maintained in the future. There will be no tree removals, and additional tree planting and street furniture is proposed for Berkeley and Richmond, which is important with the Corktown station being constructed and a lot of pedestrian traffic traveling north. So we think it's a very good development and an important contribution to the current housing crisis. We've worked very closely with staff through the processing of this application, as evidenced by the positive staff report, and worked in a very collaborative way. We concur with the recommendations and urge the Community Council to endorse them. Just a short note regarding the previous speaker, Mr. Mills. We've met with Mr. Mills on occasion. I believe he's referring to a development on the north side of Richmond, also owned by our client, that is going through a planning approvals process, but not before you today. And many of those issues are being dealt with and will be dealt with through that process. And it will come before you hopefully later this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm assuming Mr. Grabowski, you're together and you're going to...
He's not going to speak
Okay.
not to speak for him, but
I
he's here to answer any technical questions if they come up, because he has a greater grasp of that.
Yes, I'm going to say thank you on behalf of the
Thank you.
committee. I don't have any questions, so thank you for coming in today. This is my item, so I'm going to, any other speakers on this item? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I'm going to move a recommendation, an amendment, sorry, on this item. It's more technical in nature. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item is item 16.5, 214 to 230 Sherburne Street Visual Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application. We do have speakers on this item. First speaker here is John Clark. John Clark, are you here? Okay. Okay, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I think I can probably do better than 5 minutes. I've been involved in the life of the community that surrounds this site, this location, for a very, very long time, and I'm aware of how pressing the needs are in that hard-pressed community for housing solutions that meet the needs of the community. Seeing this recommendation before you, like many people here, I think I'm distressed but not entirely surprised. And that being the case, I just simply wanted to stress, for the record, 2 essential points. The first is the extreme importance of this site and the surrounding area. It really is at the heart of an area that faces enormous difficulties and enormous problems and great injustices. And the need for housing at that location, which is really at the intersection that is absolutely pivotal, is so utterly decisive and so utterly important. And conversely, to have that site become instead another development for upscale housing would be harmful and destructive in ways that I don't think it's possible to exaggerate. Would have an enormously retrograde impact on the community in terms of gentrification and displacement, the ongoing process of displacement that has impacted that community for so long. The second point I simply wanted to make is this, is that for years, not just a couple of years, but for years, there has been effort by the community in that area to ensure that housing was built at that location that met people's needs, social housing. I was an organizer with the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty. We were part of that in those days. 230 Fight Back, that I'm now part of, was also part of that struggle. But I'm not saying anything here today that local people and advocates and service providers in that area wouldn't amplify and thoroughly agree with. So I'll just say this, whatever you decide here today, you're not going to remove the necessity, you're not going to remove the need. There is a determined effort underway to ensure that that location not become King Set's castle, but that it become instead a place that really does meet the needs of the community, that provides vitally needed social housing. I don't anticipate any questions, and I'm not sure you'd like my answers, so thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, please do not clap. You could do this if you like, okay? It's disruptive to the meeting. Erin Wotherspoon, are you here?
I am.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. So, I think it's an utter shame that the city has not listened to community members who for years have advocated for sorely needed social housing at this property. Every single progressive city councillor should be ashamed to accept this proposal, including Mayor Chow. It is clear and sad that so-called progressive city councillors are quick to overlook community demands for affordable housing when faced with King Set's deep pockets. It is equally troubling that today, Instead of fighting for affordable housing, you will all likely vote in favor of for-profit housing. It is likely you will all cede the demands of KingSett, the demands of a greedy developer who is turning the city into an unaffordable condo wasteland. This is a developer that does not care at all about the communities they are developing in. KingSett has come after community groups for legal fees. I've actually sat in on community consultation meetings where KingSett staff, Tom Giancos and Ingrid Beausoleil, have admitted to knowing nothing about the communities they're seeking to develop in. It is disturbing and gross that this is the city planning process in our communities. The last thing this city needs right now is another 46-story luxury condo. It actually makes no sense. These condos are sitting empty all over the city. Many media outlets have reported on these statistics. No one is buying these condos. The vast majority of them are studio and one-bedroom units. They are ridiculously small and grossly overpriced. No one can afford them, no one wants them, and they are not suitable for families. I urge all of the councilors here today to reject this proposal, to actually listen to the communities you represent, to hear their needs, cede to us, the people. I'd also like to say that I find this process very disturbing. It appears that none of the city councilors even listen. Everyone sits there on their phones and they drink lattes. They leave the room. It's actually really disturbing that this is our planning process. Like, is this the city you all want to live in? It's not the city I want to live in. I mean, no one's even, I'm barely making eye contact with anyone here. I don't know, like what's... Well, it doesn't appear that way for a lot of us.
Have a deputy, are you finished?
Well, the two
deputing?
other counselors,
Counselors-
Brad Bradford and Josh.
That isn't appropriate.
Why is it inappropriate? I don't think it is.
You're here to depute. Your time is still running.
I'm well aware of that.
Yes, and you know, it's very unprofessional to actually speak to councilors that way.
Well, I think it's unprofessional of them to sit on their phones while the communities they supposedly represent speak to them. This is supposed to be a democracy, a representative democracy, so.
Can I, just on a point of a privilege, I just want to make it clear that we are working when we're sitting here because we have multiple obligations, and if we're running out of the room or we're writing an email, it's because we're serving 110, 150,000 constituents and are sitting on multiple committees at the same time. So I hope that people don't believe that we're not paying attention. When we go to our offices, we are listening to you. I think the question here is, why are there 25 counselors? Why is the planning process the way it is? We can't answer that at this committee. Why did the provincial government change it? So I just, even if, I don't mind if you hold that time, I just want to make, I think it's important that you don't feel that we're ignoring you. We just.
Well, I do appreciate you saying that, and I think that speaking to that is good. But yes, from my vantage point, and I'm sure other people's vantage points as well, it does look like we're not being listened to at all. So just throwing that out there.
Fair, we hear you. Are you, any other further comments?
That's it.
I do have one question, though.
Sure.
For this particular application, do you understand why a rezoning is being proposed?
Pardon?
For this particular application at 214, 230 Sherburne Street?
Yes.
What's being asked here is a official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. Do you understand what that means?
Well, no, we've had multiple emails with your office and no one speaks in a way that the actual layperson can understand. So the answer to that question is no. We got a very cryptic email from one of your staff members. So if you'd care to, just explain it in a way that the public, not, bureaucrats can understand, we're all ears.
Okay. Well, I will ask staff a few questions and then I'll speak to this item and perhaps I'll try to use common language that.
Please do. We'd all appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Next person up is McDonald. Sorry, Ms. Weatherspoon, Councilor Fletcher has a question for you. And I've asked several times, please do not clap.
It's okay. No, Just
Fletcher.
do your jazz hands, because that, we all know what's going on there. Thank you. Just on this application, the applicant technically could put affordable housing here, but I believe has decided not to.
Right.
Do you think, and then use the community, you know that we used to be able to get the Section 37.
I do,
And then
yeah.
it changed at the province, and then there's something called CBCs, which are these monies for housing.
Yeah.
Would you, and I do understand that this developer does not ever add affordable, because I've
Yeah.
had that conversation many times.
Mhm.
So what would your suggestion be to the city about having that requirement around the community benefit charges at that location, if there's any possibility to require that, rather than leave that up to the developer?
Yeah, well, I do understand that the province has made it pretty tricky for the city to advocate for the inclusion of affordable housing. I mean, it's my understanding that some of these, city councilors such as yourself do take meetings with these Kingset folks. So I'm wondering if there's any way we can bring them to the table at least, or is it just, yeah, I mean, they can't be, some of them are here. I don't know. Can we just chat with them, Tom?
I guess you could do that in the hallway if you wanted to do that. But I understand some of their developments are part of the Housing Now plan, and that's where the affordable housing would go, and I'm unsure. I'll ask the staff that, because I'm just wondering about what that mix looks like there in this area of great need, which we know about Sherburne. So I will ask that when I have
Okay.
a chance to ask the staff, okay?
Yeah, there
We don't
must
do
be
that yet. We're
something.
hearing from you first, and then we get a chance to publicly ask.
Okay,
our
and I'm sure there's other people here who
Yeah.
can answer that better than myself. I'm in Parkdale, but yeah, I appreciate the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. McDonald Scott.
Hello.
You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
I work with the law firm Carenza LLP, and as you know, Alejandra, I also work with a group called No One Is Illegal. I have a privilege on the second Wednesday of every month to meet with non-status poor people at the Regent Park Community Health Center. Those people will not be served by this condominium. When I go into Seton House to meet with non-status people who are basically just come right off the street, they won't get a unit in that condo. We saw what happened at Regent Park. We saw where we were promised every bed would be replaced. We saw that those units were de-indexed and put up to market rents, and my people could not live in those buildings. I urge you, there are good people on this committee and this council. I urge you to do everything you can to make 230 into low-income housing, complete low-income housing. The mixed use, we've seen it go badly. It says right on the Kingset website that this will not be a mixed income development. I urge you not to pass this bylaw. Pass this bylaw when someone comes forward with low-income housing for that place. And I would also put in mind that we have fought for this for 10 years and will continue to fight, and we will fight for this to be low-income housing. I thank you for your time, and barring any questions, I will see you on the streets.
Thank you. I appreciate you being so succinct. Megan Key? Megan Key, are you here? Megan Key?
I'm here.
Okay, 5 minutes, go ahead.
My name is Megan, and I'm an organizer with No Dumb Evictions. I'm here today to support my friends and fellow organizers at 230 Fight Back, who have been advocating for the site to be turned into affordable housing for almost a decade. The site at 214 230 Sherbourne highlights a serious problem with housing in the city. What should be driving housing development is a focus on affordability, density, adequate living space, green spaces that improve the quality of life for everyone. But what is actually driving housing development is profit. It's the shrinkflation of housing, where you're paying more but getting less. Towers of over 60 stories with 80% one-bedroom, 500 square foot apartments are being built to maximize profits without considering who's going to live in them, and the implications that that has. Many people are no longer having children, are spending over 60% of their income on rent, and are forced to rely on food banks to survive. There's no freedom in our housing. There's no opportunity to buy, even if we wanted to, no opportunity to move because everything is unaffordable, and there's a constant fear of renting an apartment built after 2018. And what is causing this to happen? Well, investors own 56.4% of recently completed condos in Toronto, and then these condos are being sold back to us at a premium without rent control. And what I'm building to is that developers like Kingset Capital are never going to solve the housing crisis with developments like this one, because in many ways, companies like this are the housing crisis. This crisis has never been more lucrative for companies like Kingset, whose company manages $18 billion in assets. When my friend's affordable rental building of 80 units was approved for demolition in June to be turned into condos by Kingset, their lawyer, Cynthia McDougall, who's here today, said in her deputation, and I quote, "I know it's always difficult to remove rental units and replace them. However, what's worse, in fact, is if there is no change." Actually, what's worse, in fact, is that the limited supply of affordable purpose-built rentals is slowly being replaced by housing that only investors can afford. What's worse, in fact, is that we rely on for-profit developers to build all of our housing based on the principle of maximizing profits and not improving communities. And what's worse, in fact, is being told by the very people causing the problem that they are the solution. The solution is right in front of us, and yet we fail to see it because developers and politicians always tell us it doesn't matter what kind of housing we built, just that we build it. In fact, it actually does matter what kind of housing we built, especially on a site like this. Condo sales in July were at a 27-year low. Why? Because all that is on the market are tiny, unlivable, expensive boxes that even investors won't gamble on when interest rates are high. So now not only do we have housing sitting empty when there's over 10,000 people experiencing homelessness, but if nobody pre-buys these expensive condos, it will halt the development of the only housing we are actually building. Affordable social and non-market housing is the only solution for a site like this and across the city. So I want to end with just one simple suggestion coming in almost at 3 minutes. Commit to working with 230 Fight Back and No Dumb Evictions to advocate to the province for a first right of refusal legislation, which allows municipalities the ability to purchase land before it goes to the open market, where companies like Kingset will outbid them every single time, which is what we've seen on this site. It has been done in Quebec, and dozens of buildings have been saved as a result. It reduces the number of dem evictions because municipalities have the ability to actually buy that land. And then money from the federal government is actually being put to proper use rather than outbidding multi-billion-dollar companies that have more money than we could possibly imagine. I just want to end on one last little point. The building 135 Isabella that was voted and approved in June to be demolished and redeveloped into a condo building, that building, that piece of land that has her building on it is now being sold by Kingset Capital. So her and her tenants have fought for over a year and a half of immense stress to be able to negotiate for tenants the best deal that they could possibly get. And now they learn that Kingset is actually selling their building. So they're gonna have to go through this process again. It's the process of land flipping that is not adding value to our housing market in any way whatsoever. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fletcher, go ahead.
So this is something, the buy, rezone, upzone, and flip, that happens quite a bit. And that is the Planning Act, which you seem very familiar with, creates these issues, and it's further, we have less and less power than we did before after the changes in the Planning Act. But I guess you said that developers and councillors are doing that. Are you aware there's some, build anything, just build, right? That build housing. That there are some, I'll call it groups, not yours, but others who are very instrumental in simply giving that message constantly to at public meetings, saying doesn't matter about affordable housing, just build anything. You're aware of those groups like More Neighbors and others like that?
Yes, unfortunately I am.
You are. Unfortunately you are. So we agree that that's just an approach. So it's not just politicians and developers. There's
absolutely a
group of people and a number that constantly are saying, let's not look any deeper, just build it. And your point in the condos, that the market isn't great, but if you're buying in order to resell it, then you're just putting the zoning on. The rental replacement bylaw in the city, how is it working on this site, in your opinion, in order to have to replace those on site or replace them somewhere else?
Sorry, on this application?
Yes, on this application.
To be honest, I don't know if there are people who are currently renting in those spaces that are actually at 214, 230 Sherbourne. Is that the case?
What about 135 Isabella that you mentioned? Is a rental.
Well, what's interesting is that a lot of people have actually moved out of 135 Isabella because of the fear of what's going to happen to their building and them being forced out in advance.
Right.
And so while...
Yeah, I just want you to be aware that you're not personally replacing that, you're replacing the rental. And I'm wondering what happened with that one. I don't remember. Do you remember?
Well, fundamentally, they're protected by rental replacement bylaws at 135 Isabella. But one of the fundamental issues with that is the rental replacement units only need to be rentals for 20 years. And so what this does is it pushes this problem of affordability further down the road.
I understand, but do you know, I'm going to ask what the rental replacement is in a few of these, because it's the one thing that we have that they didn't take away under bill. What number was that, Bill? 23. 29, there's so many bills, that, just full of bills. But that one was one that we said, don't change that, because at least the units are there, and I understand people move because they don't know what's going to happen. I got that. It happens all the time. Okay, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you so much. Megan. Megan Carver, are you here? Okay, 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Megan Carver, and I've worked on the front lines of the housing and opioid crisis in Toronto my whole career. I've spent the past 10 years in the downtown east of Toronto supporting individuals without a place to call home. I am currently a community health worker at Regent Park Community Health Centre, Mr. Moisey, across from your constituent's office. Regent Park Community Health Centre has been providing comprehensive health services.
It's Counselor, I hate to do that to you, but when you're here, he's Counselor Moisey. It's just the rules of procedure. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Regent Park Community Health Centre has been providing comprehensive health and social services for 50 years to community members in the Regent Park and Moss Park neighborhoods, including those who are precariously housed or homeless, newcomers, families, youth, and First Nations individuals. The work of my community and outreach and support team consists of intensive case management and outreach supporting individuals who are homeless, addressing mental health, addictions, and criminal justice issues, but of course with the biggest desired outcome being housing. At Regent Park Community Health Centre, we recognize that the relationship between homelessness and health are complex, and that safe and affordable housing is necessary for positive health outcomes. Every day, we support people dealing with complex health conditions associated with homelessness, such as chronic and infectious diseases, undiagnosed mental health, crisis, cognitive impairments, addictions, and extreme weather-related injuries. Accelerating aging and early onset geriatric conditions is also a common theme, shown by MAP Center for Urban Health Solutions, a study showing that sleeping outside or in shelter shortens one lifespan by 17 years. Knowing this, we do our best to assist individuals in housing search. We usually start by calling the central intake line, but on the days where we aren't disconnected due to high call volumes, we're informed the shelter is full, there are no beds, and to call back in 2 hours. This is of no surprise to many of us, knowing that Toronto has over 10,000 homeless individuals, and 70% of that number being chronically homeless. Among those seeking shelters are many who are seeking asylum or refugee claimants. I'm sure I don't need to remind you all of the crisis we faced last year, with many of these folks sleeping outside the Assessment and Referral Center at 129 Peter Street. When we find the shelter system full, we then contact crisis centers and central detox. But while on hold, I prepare my clients for the reality that they will most likely not have a roof over their head that evening. Conversations veer to survival techniques, avoiding conflict with authority and making it through the night alive to meet up again in the morning to repeat the cycle. Encampments and riding on the TTC all night long also have serious safety risks, and others find secluded spots in ravines, cemeteries, empty corridors in the hospital, or find a reason to present at the ER. Handing out a pair of mittens and a Presto Pass is no comparison to finding safe and warm cots to sleep on for the night. Side effects such as from sleep deprivation then enter, such as hallucinations, low distress tolerance skills, and no motivation to improve life circumstances. Not to mention the province's recent announcement that they will be closing the consumption treatment sites, which will inevitably lead to an increase in the visibly homeless on the streets of downtown East. We're all aware of the gravity of the housing crisis in Toronto. I work with the victims and survivors of it every single day. Our jobs are to find housing, but according to the city website, wait time for a one-bedroom is at least 14 years. A mother with a newborn could see her child into high school before securing housing. The average price for a one-bedroom in shared accommodations, according to this city's website, is $1,117. The 214 to 230 Sherbourne development is an ideal location to make a step towards addressing the homeless crisis. Any proposal to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit 46-story residential development containing 615 dwelling units should be to the benefit of 615 of the city's most vulnerable people, especially at the intersection of Dundas and Sherbourne. If the city is going to build housing here, let's make it in the form of housing that we need most in Toronto: safe, subsidized housing units. We need rent-geared to income housing and supportive housing so that both individual and community health can thrive. On behalf of Regent Park Community Health Centre, please deny this application for a high-rise condo that will not serve people in the most need in the downtown East, and instead, please move towards building subsidized and supportive housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Question.
Okay, Councilor Bravo, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for bringing all of these issues to our attention. You have on this committee members of the Board of Health, and I'm Chair of Economic and Community Development Committee, and so are members here where we hear about and understand everything you're telling us about the provincial decisions around safe injection and around the lack of affordable housing. My question had to do with a policy that exists in Montreal, for example. Montreal has the power of first refusal. So if there's a piece of land like this that have been identified as strategic for the city, in Montreal, they would be able to be notified first and be able to purchase the land. Would you agree that that would be a positive thing if the provincial government would allow the City of Toronto to do that? So as you say, we could say this is a strategic location, we need to build housing that's affordable and that provides the services that are needed.
Would it be a benefit for the province?
Be able, because in a private transaction, right, we don't get notified about, there's no
Absolutely be
process.
beneficial to be notified, yes.
Yeah, so, and notified, and then there's a second piece, which not just notification, but that there's a right of first refusal, that means that if it's going for sale, the city can say, wait a minute, we want to make the offer first, because this piece of land has strategic value, and we have all these objectives that we have at the city, which we, I think, share with, in policy and in ways that we're advancing with the deputants. It would be great if the province would let us do that, I think, and if Montreal can do that, then we wouldn't be in this situation in many ways, and certainly in my ward, we have buildings that have come up with the community, like in this situation, have had real sites on it and have plans and momentum, but we don't know about the transaction because it's all in the private real estate. Yeah, so I just put that on your radar as like, how could it help? Would it help? Like, what could you imagine could happen in that situation? I'm just trying to.
If the city had option for first refusal and had the goal of building affordable housing, of course, yes, it would help our community much more.
Great. And the second question, I think, is just around so the housing plan that there exists looks at taking, owning more land, taking city land, and not necessarily, and the way that the model before was to give it to developers to develop and put in affordable housing. So we're trying to encourage social ownership. Do you think that would be helpful for serving the objectives that you've identified and the urgent needs that you've identified?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Gayton Heroes? Gayton? Gayton Heroes. Okay, 5 minutes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was 53 years old when we began to fight for 230. 53 years old. I'm going to be 70 next year. 16 years. And I know you have a lot, I know it's tough with the province. 16 years. And in March of 2022, the city bid for that property.
Yes, it did.
And KingSett outbid you. And who is KingSett? There was a rep here earlier on. I think he's gone. Who are they? You do business with them. Did you not ever ask your question? Why did they bid against the city when you give them contracts at 705 Warden? Did you not ask that question? And when you buy buildings off them at 877 Yonge, this is the group of people who hid behind a number, a company number, incorporated number, and refused to tell those seniors what was going on in the summer of 2019. That was KingSett. That was Bill Logar, Rob Coomer, David Vernon, John Loves, the CCO. Did we not all see what happened that summer? The story when it came out, is it happening in Mississauga right now? It happened to be KingSett. And then we're told that somehow there's negotiations that have been going on after we went to your office, Councilor Morris, and we asked you. And at that time, by the way, you said we lost the battle, blah, blah, but then KingSett offered, and yes, there was negotiation, and the mayor also. But we're told you can't agree. You can't agree on a price because they want too much money. You know what they're doing. You say it. They're greedy. You openly say it. And the city says, we won't pay for that. It's too much money. And yet, while these negotiations are going on, in January of this year, the city gave them almost $10 million in tax cuts for the West Mall. You did that. What you can do today is say no to them. These are people you do business with. Stop doing business with them while this is going on. 214, 230 was part of your plan. It was in your documents that you wanted it to help develop Dan Harrison. KingSett knew that. John Love knew that. That's who these people are. They don't care. And you can say no today. Councilor Morris, it's important that you say no. Because if you say yes, none of these councilors will oppose you. None. Because it's your turf. There's an unwritten rule where that happens. You don't touch somebody else's turf. So it's up to you today to do that. And I'm going to finish my story. I got about a minute and 44, 45, 40, okay. I met a woman last year. Her name was Betty Robinson. She was 101 when I met her. She was one of those seniors who was being evicted that summer in 2019. She refused to sign. And as a result of that, she stayed in her home. All the other seniors went, and this is just before COVID, right? And all those other seniors went into, COVID-invested old age homes. And I met her. She still lives there on the 14th floor. For a year and a half, she sat in this empty building by herself. 16 stories, the city eventually bought the building. Somehow, she managed to keep her home. Not because of counselors, not because of advocates, but she did it. And she's a real inspiration for us. And all I want to say is whatever you decide today, you have to know that any developer, whether it's KingSett, whether they sell the land, anybody who supports them, if you intend to come on that territory at Dundas and Sherburne and build a condo, you're going to run into a mine. There's going to be a fight. We're going to fight you. And we're going to fight you hard. And today you have to choose which side you're on. And we're listening and watching. You know? We're watching.
Thank you. So I do have a question for you. No? Okay, all right, no questions. That's fine, thank you. Barrick, and thank you for coming in today. Barrick Germain.
Why not? I'm curious why there's no question.
Barrick German, are you here?
Well, that was nasty, Gordon.
Barrick German?
That was pretty nasty, Gordon.
Is Barrick German here?
I'm here. You're tired? Yeah, I know you're tired. I know you're tired. You're all tired. We're all tired. Pretty nasty.
You have 5 minutes, go ahead.
So we're talking about a historic property. Affordable housing was one on that property. In the 1980s, I was there with others, and Drina Joubert froze to death on that property. There was an inquest. We called for an inquest, and we participated in an inquest. And 3,000 units for singles came right across Ontario. 3,000 units. But even bigger, single people could get subsidies across Ontario. We can do this kind of thing, or we can try and put a nail in the coffin of affordability. In this room are many people who over the years have fought for reforms, for housing, and there have been many, many wins, and this city has changed in that sense. This city uses funds that come from a declaration across the country that we had a national disaster on our hands. I was involved in that intimately. And the people in this room have been involved over many years and will become involved again and again and again. We will not let this ride. You have a choice now. If you put that unaffordable housing on that corner, a tall, unaffordable building, it will do what it's meant to do. As tall as it is, it will heat up the prices of land in that whole territory. It will put a nail in the coffin of affordability on that street. We know that there had been plans to use some of that property, for the city to buy that property and to put prefabs on that property and have all of the buildings, the Toronto community housing buildings, renovated so that people could come to that property and live in that property, and their rooms would be renovated. Because on that street are numerous public housing units that have to be renovated. If not, we'll lose them. You have to look at the bigger picture. We can't any longer just hand things on to kings. We can't let it happen. Staff, who knows what their relationship is with KingSett Capital? Who knows? I'm certain that many politicians are quite frightened. But the people who live in the area are more frightened. They've been sitting there watching that building stand there empty, watching them die, as did the councillors, as did most people, as did the bureaucrats in this city. Many of the bureaucrats in this city live on funding that advocates got for them. And now we will continue this fight, as Gaetan said, and others have said. We won't let this go. We can't let this go. This affects people across this city. If you're going to hand the city over to Kingset, at least say so. Let's not pretend any longer. You know that if a building goes on that corner, it will create unaffordability all the way up the road. And you do need a property where you can where you can begin to renovate the buildings on that street. They go all the way down to my building. So do the right thing. Do what people did in the 1980s.
Okay.
Let's have some affordable housing.
You have 10 seconds, sir.
Let's look after our people. Let's look after our people. And we're going to be watching very, very closely.
Thank you.
This is not the end of this.
Any questions? Thank you, Miguel, for doing this. I appreciate you following instructions very clearly.
Well, they were, everybody was here when we had to save all the TCHC houses, so we learned how to do that.
Cynthia McDougall? 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia McDougall. I'm here for Kingset. Before you is a planning report recommending approval of official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. And it's a positive staff report. It also provides for recommendations to provide for the restoration, conservation of the Deneen House. The site is vacant. There are no tenants that are going to be displaced. There have been a lot of powerful community spokespeople addressing their views on how the site should be used. In this case, before you is a report asking you to use your legislative function to either approve or not approve the zoning and official plan amendment. And I would urge you to adopt the recommendations of staff. And I would also point out that there is a very strong endorsement from the Cabbagetown, the South Cabbagetown Residents Association. In fact, it's enthusiastic. And so there are different views in the community. I recognize it's been a very, very long morning, so I was going to just end my comments at this point and answer any questions you may have.
Any other questions from staff, from councilors, committee members? Seeing none. Thank you.
Now's your time. No. You never see these people.
Allison Falby, are you here? Five minutes, go ahead.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Allison Fulby, and I am the priest director at All Saints Church Community Center, which is located on the southeast corner of Dundas and Sherbourne, directly across the street from 230. And as you've all heard today, Dundas and Sherbourne has been an intersection of need for many, many years. I would say over 60. Some would say dating back to the First World War. And we, All Saints, have been advocating for affordable housing in the neighborhood since 1968. We started a drop-in center in 1970, and we opened Canada's first overnight church respite, what's now called Out of the Cold, in 1972. And since then, Toronto's housing crisis has gotten worse, not better. With gentrification coming from all directions, Dundas and Sherbourne has become the corner of last resort. An increasing number of people without housing call Dundas and Sherbourne home, and they will not be able to afford the condominiums proposed for Sherbourne Street, whether they are built by Kingset Capital or Fitzrovia Real Estate or any other for-profit developer. The Fitzrovia development has already been approved. Kingset Capitals has not. And this means theoretically that there is still a chance to build housing for people without homes in a neighborhood where they already live and in a neighborhood that can support them, and at an intersection that has supported some of Toronto's most vulnerable people for over 60 years. People are homeless because they don't have housing. And while All Saints Church does its best to support people who are struggling, we can't house people, much as we try. And if we as a city want to solve homelessness, we have to build housing for the people who don't have it, and that we can include developers if they are so inclined. In the 1960s and 70s, when developers were buying up and demolishing rooming houses across Toronto, especially in the downtown east, Sherbourne and Dundas, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation partnered with a private developer named Fred Breda to build Canada's first high-rise rooming house in 1970. Designed by architect Thomas Cullman, located north of Dundas at 266 Sherbourne, a 13-story building with 120 units opened. Am I boring people? This is actually quite interesting. I would like people to listen. My own counselor is not listening. Okay.
Pause the time. I know I would
Yes.
like to, as a point of privilege, I think it's really important to remember that the local councilor is also the chair of this committee. This agenda has 50 items on it. We are all working on a bunch of different items that are on this agenda. In addition, sorry, but I think that the respect has to be mutual. I would say that the chair is, his responsibility is to work with all of us as we move through the agenda. We're at the same time working on all the other issues on the agenda. So I regret that we have to listen with one ear and type emails and talk to each other with the rest of ourselves. But I assure you that people are not doing that out of disrespect or that because they don't want to listen. It's because we have multiple responsibilities. So I would ask you to please stop addressing the chair in that way. He is our peer here, and he might not be able to say that for himself, but he's working his butt off right now. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I'm not used to people standing up and walking around while I'm talking, that's all. So yes, there is a very interesting building at 266 Sherbourne Street, which was built with a partnership between the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation and a private developer. It is studied by urbanists all over the world, and it is still standing. It was a private development. It has 120 units, and it is still providing rooms for people who need it. It is not ideal. It is certainly not deeply affordable in the way that it is needed by that neighborhood. But at the time it was constructed, it represented an innovative response to the housing crisis of the time. And we are, of course, now at another crisis point, which, if the city chooses, can be an opportunity to help the most vulnerable among us, rather than putting the profit motive above all considerations. And so I'm here to request that the City Council reject this rezoning proposal, and instead asking the city and the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, though I know they're not here, and Kingset to work together to seek an alternative development that would provide housing for the people who are already living at Dundas and Sherbourne. And this housing should be affordable and deeply supportive. I do have serious concerns about what will happen to the safety of our neighbors if the current proposed development goes through in its current form. We are already anticipating the closure of 3 overdose prevention sites in our neighborhood and expecting overdoses to increase, particularly at our corner. And just to let you know, there were 14 in our parking lot last August. I don't see condo owners liking that happening right across the street from where they're living. We know that And that 14 was on a single day, FYI. Homelessness is a significant factor in drug abuse. The closure of the overdose prevention sites, coupled with further gentrification, will push our city's most vulnerable people into deserted alleyways and most likely death. The empty lot at 214, 230 Sherbourne offers a historic opportunity to provide housing for those who need it most, the people who don't have it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of deputy? Seeing none, thank you. Wasim Ghani, you here? Okay, you have 5 minutes, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Wasim. I think this is office, which binds you to work in the best interests of the people. So why is it that in this case, the interest of the people is being trumped by the interest of one developer?
Councillor Sachs, if you leave, I will not have quorum. Councillor Fletcher is on her way out. Actually, Councillor Bradford is back. Okay, we're good. Councillor Bradford is back. Thank you.
Shall I repeat? Because I was interrupted. Let me just...
I was reset your time. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm saying that your oath of office binds you to work in the best interests of the people. So why is it that in this case, the interest of the people, of the community, is being trumped by the interest of one developer, KingSett Capital? What's in it for you? Why must you side with the greedy and the people who want to have profit at any cost? I don't think it's really a very wise thing for the councillors, and I'm not advising you, but I feel as a resident of this area that when you don't listen to people, it's not even good for your political careers. I don't know. I just feel that, I'm not going to vote for the councillor that I voted for because that person has changed his colors or is not listening to us. It's really, I went door knocking with the councillor. He perhaps recalls that. But, if you don't listen to the people, we are going to not support you anymore. And there may be other people who will have same views about your performances. I know that, you have to abide by laws and regulations and so on, but you make the laws and regulations, and you are such experts at red tape and at stopping things and delaying things to allow KingSett to obtain the property, and then to go for making a condo tower 46-story high in an area that is populated by just the absolute poorest of the people. It's really a cruel joke. It's not a joke. It's just plain cruelty. I really sincerely request all of you to, for some time, think from your heart. You're talking about people, human lives. This is not business as usual. We should not just always be slick and smart and, glib and, we can change this from that. I know you people have golden tongues. Yes, but think from your heart. Think again what you're doing to people. And that is the area that 230 is situated. It's the area where the poorest of the people live. That is a little enclave now. The developers have pushed people out and out and out of the city. Where will the poor people go when you have pushed them all out? Even in the outer side of Toronto, people are talking against the poor people, the people who suffer most, who are sick, who are unhealthy, who suffer from abject poverty. Nobody is willing to receive, to accept people who are not dressed well, who don't speak well, who don't follow the nitty-gritty of the law, because you people say, well, you should all be nice and speak nicely. Angry people, desperate people never speak nicely. And even you, all of you have experienced that kind of situation. Don't tell me that you've always been rich and you never had to suffer the indignity of want and need and, the oppression of the system. Please think again. Don't just be glib and just, support each other. Well, because he's proposed something, I must support him and that kind of thing. I know that happens in politics, but don't do it this time. We're talking about just a little area in the city. Let them live there. That is the only place they have left now. Where will they go? And think of the consequences of pushing people out. There may be social issues. You'll end up spending more money. Just the other day, I came to know that the city is spending something like $4 million or $10 million, I forget, on giving a contract to some guard company to look after people, so-called unhoused people in the parks and so on. I'm not confirming this, but I read it somewhere. Now, the city has to spend money to look after, to guard people and to do all those things. Spend that money on making social housing. Why must you do that? And I want to ask KingSett Capital, you have so much money, millions of dollars.
You're at time, sir.
Okay, well, KingSett and everyone, we are not backing down.
Yeah.
And you should remember, we will not back down ever.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion to extend the speak. Is anyone able to stay beyond 12? Okay, I guess we'll just have to. All right, so we'll do one more speaker and then we'll go on lunch. Miguel Avila Velarde.
Good afternoon. Hi, Chris. Well, I call you in that manner because I respect you as a former runner councilor for Ward 13 in 2022. I have a lot of respect because I know you work hard. And this is the most important decision of your life as a political figure. Because you need 2 terms and a half to receive the golden pension plan that all city councilors want to have. It is that true. So two and a half is what you need. So right here, we are all know the business of the city. And you have to make a decision that will cost you political life. If you voted in favor, the chances of you getting reelected is next to 0. This has been the longest battle in the city of Toronto. Many of us, when we started, we have black hair. Look at us. Now we have gray hair because previous mayors, Rob Ford and his brother Doug Ford, they will never support housing for the poor. John Tory, 8 years, wasting in approval condominiums. The whole corridor down the street had changed dramatically. All the affordable housing units are gone. Our neighbors have been displaced. Our youth are moving out of the city. I think Councilor Bradford called him all the time. He said many people are leaving the city. Many of them, when he was running for mayor, exactly pointed out that people cannot afford to live in the city. And many of you city councilors have your own incumbents problems, your own nightmares. And your members are asking at your door, what are you going to do about it? So today is an important decision that will turn around the winnings of the large corporations in approving condominiums who we know that sitting empty. The pre-sales of condominiums has gone down 80%. The condo bubble is bursting. Please, we are here to ask you to do the right thing, Councilor Chris Moyes. Say no to this proposal. We know that rezoning is going to make them more profitable, more rich. We know that Kinset will not retain the property if someone comes with big money. And they're not going to build affordable housing. Look what they done to in 2019, as my brother Gaetan mentioned. Seniors were kicked out of their homes. Same has happened in Mississauga. And you guys are giving them $10 million in tax breaks. You know, this is not right. We're seeing that the bad corporations are getting away with crime. And that's not allowed. It's not good for us as citizens. We want to be abiding citizens. But this situation is making us to become more vocal, more consistent in being here, like since 8 o'clock this morning, and supporting my friends, Gaetan, John Clark, Waliko Gali. Everyone here wants one thing from you, that you vote no to this proposal. And let's make sure that Kansas get the message clear that the city wants to build housing to deal with our homeless crisis and addictions. As you know, that is one corner that nobody wants to be around there. Sherwood and Dundas at nighttime is as scary as hell. But if we have a condominium, what positive message is going to bring to all of us? You know, Toronto police are asking for more money. Why not we dedicate funding and transfer to the housing sector and build more housing for our people? Thank you, Chris, and I hope you listen to us.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, we'll recess for lunch.
Thank you.
We're back at 1:30.